Ladies and gentlemen, it is the first podcast by the Covfefe Patriot, and you are listening to Covfefe Patriot Radio. So for my first podcast, what I want to talk about is something totally out of the norm of what I plan on doing for future podcasts. This is the event that actually got me started to wanting to get in and finally pull the Band-Aid off this mess and get a podcast out. So yesterday, me and my beautiful wife were sitting there at my in-laws, and we were going to have a nice breakfast dinner. If you don't know what that is, it's where you have, breakfast for dinner. So we're sitting there, and we see a car pull up to the driveway. Then all of a sudden, this guy gets out, walks to the house, and he informs us that our dog was hit and is laying on the side of the road. My wife got halfway down the driveway. I was a few steps behind her, and I saw my dog laying down, and then I seen my wife collapse to the ground and scream. It was one of the hardest things I ever had to witness in my life, one of the saddest moments that I ever had to take part in. For the first night after we buried her, I'd say that the struggles of breathing were there, and I was feeling numb. I didn't want to talk about it. I didn't want to do anything. Nothing I could do took this feeling away, and I just wanted to go to bed. So I took one of my anti-anxiety pills that helps me sleep. Thankfully, I have some of them that are PRN. Took that, went to bed, and then I woke up, and I said to myself, "You can't cry no more, Jacob," because my dog, Olive, which was her name, was worthy of my tears, of course, but the truth is she's worthy of so much more. I'm a firm believer in the kingdom of heaven, or at least I should say I'm a firm believer that there's something out there for us to go and return to after we die. So I do believe that my dog Olive is now somewhere safe, happy, and she's watching down. And that helps us get through it. It certainly does, to have faith that your dog is in a safe place, happy. It's still very hard. I'm not going to pretend it's not. But I feel the more I talk about it, the better I feel. So I wanted to go ahead today and do this podcast about my dog Olive and how beautiful and wonderful she was, and how it just seemed to be the perfect dog for me and my wife. So it all started back about 2.5 years ago now. We moved to Minnesota, and we had one dog, still have that guy. His name's Lincoln. We actually had another dog at the time. His name was Patriot, but he lived a full life, had a great life, but it came down that it was no longer enjoyable for him to be living. So we put him down. It was a hard choice, but in the end we believe that was the right choice. But in the meantime, my wife sends me this link on Facebook, and it says, "The Mighty Nine. Come check out our adoption service in Mankato, Minnesota." And she sent me this link, and it was for after work that day. It was a Friday. I was working half a day. And I remember saying, "What are you trying to say, Cassandra?" And I knew very well what she was trying to say. She would like to get a puppy. So I knew what was going to happen. I knew the chances of coming home that day without a puppy was slim to none. So when I got there, I remember saying, "Which one is the runt?" I wanted the smallest dog. Lincoln is a big dog. He's about 95 pounds, probably could stand to lose a little bit. I didn't want another big dog. And the dogs, they were a mixed breed, pit, bulldog, and some Japanese breed that I'm not too sure of, but mostly she looked like a pit bull with that stocky bulldog build. So I'm like, I want the runt. I don't want another huge dog. I want some bed space. So the runt was sleeping when we went in, and sure enough, we're playing with all the dogs. This little runt gets up, and I got a beard. It's wintertime. I got this red long beard. So then my dog, or not my dog at the time, then this little runt comes up, and she starts nibbling on my beard. Not hurting me, just playing with it. She loved it. And the lady that was running the adoption service said, "Hey, that's the runt. Her name's Bella." And I said, "All right, hon, this is the dog we got to get. She's the runt. She won't get too big." And she picked me. My wife got down on her knees and fell in love with the dog from that moment on, she became our dog. My wife, I remember her saying she did pick us, so I guess we got to bring her home. Before that, my wife's always had male dogs. She didn't want a female dog because, well, she didn't want to deal with some of the hygiene mess that comes with female dogs. But thankfully, where Olive was adopted, she already came spayed, so there was nothing to worry about. I remember bringing her home that day, and she was so little. I think she was probably not even 8 pounds. She could fit in the pocket of a hoodie sweatshirt easily. It was kind of funny to see, and she loved everything. Now, I told you earlier about my 85-pound dog. Now, imagine seeing this little 8-pound goofy hairball trying to play tug of war with an 85-pound dog. It was just something. It was so funny to see. She didn't stand a chance, and Lincoln was being also gentle. You know, he didn't pull. He just sat there and sat down the whole time, and she was pulling for all her might. The heart in this little puppy was by far the biggest heart that I ever saw in a dog. She just had so much love to give. She wasn't mean to Lincoln. She got him moving, and he was afraid. He was petrified of this puppy that would not back down. You know, he had a bone, she had to get a bone, or she was going to be gnawing on the other end of his at the same time. And, well, Lincoln's not one to share, so most of the time he just got up and walked away. So, there we have these two dogs. One dog's all bugged to high heaven. The other dog's absolutely in love with this big dog and wants to play with it 24/7. And then over time, slowly it gradually, I should say, my little dog and big dog became best of friends. They would go outside, run around the house, and do laps. I mean, it was the happiest I've ever seen my big dog Lincoln. It was the happiest I've ever seen my wife when she watched the dogs play. So it was so awesome watching this dog grow, and it was a part of our lives. But sadly, that was cut short. We had Olive for just over a year before she met her tragic end. Now, I could be grieving, and I could be sad, and I am. I could let those emotions take over, but at the same time, I'm going to refuse to do that. You know, because that's not what Olive would want. Olive's whole life was about having fun, being energetic, loving everything. She was afraid of the rain, and one time Olive runs right outside in the middle of a thunderstorm. We couldn't figure out for the life of us why all of a sudden this dog that's been petrified of falling water for the first year of her life wanted to go running out there. It turns out that there was a toad on the sidewalk, and she tried everything to get that toad just to hop so she could chase it. She never pawed it, she never snipped at it, or even growled on it. She was just so amazed by this little beautiful creature that could just hop, that was so much smaller than her. That was Olive in a nutshell. Now, the only time she would ever accidentally hurt somebody was from her tail. It was like an Indiana Jones whip, back and forth. If she smacked you in the calf with that thing, trust me, you were going to feel it. Now, on the other hand, Olive would rather just lick you to death than ever growl or bark at you. She probably would have made an awful guard dog. But she made the perfect companion, the perfect friend. And so it's really hard to see her leave. It's really hard to see her go. I know God had plans for my dog, because that's his dog too. So there is that to deal with. At the same time, there's this thankfulness that, yes, I had one very, very awful day with Olive, but think of all the great, fantastic days my whole family had with Olive. And those are the days that I need to think about first, because those are the real days that matter. It doesn't matter how Olive died. It matters how Olive lived. So that's what me and my family, we're going to focus on. And I know that I'm not the only one here that has a tale of something tragic and sad happening to them. So believe me, guys, when I say if you're out there and you're hurt and you're grieving, I know what it's like. You know, it's sad, and as you get older, you tend to find yourself in more and more of those situations, and it can become harder and unbearable to deal with at times. But you have to remember that those good times are not dead. They have not died. They're still alive and well in your heart and soul. And that's what you need to think about. That needs to be your main focus when you're grieving. Listen, dying's easy, guys. It's one of the easiest things any of us will ever have to do. It has a 100% success rate. None of us are going to screw up dying. I promise you this. Living, surviving, and thriving. Those are the hard things. Those are the things that become unbearable at times. And it may seem like it's not worth it. Well, trust me, it is. It is absolutely worth it. Because if it wasn't for our positive attitude, who knows what kind of home Olive would have gone to. And we wouldn't have been blessed with that dog in that year that we had. For those of you that are wondering, you might be wondering, well, how did you let your dog get in the road? Let me explain this real quick, and I understand. If I was listening to this, it would certainly be the same question that I would have. So I'm not offended by it at all. Well, the truth is, we took both our dogs out to my in-laws, where they have 15 acres of land, and they're about a quarter of a mile away from the road. This has been something we have always done since we've gotten Olive. It wasn't a new, something new or out of the norm for her. But where the road was so far away, she never went down there. We think that she may have seen a rabbit, and she just ran and ran and ran until, unfortunately, she met her end. So, is it our fault? Absolutely. I'm not trying to sit here and say I did nothing wrong. Of course we did something wrong. We are totally guilty of letting our dog run free, get an exercise. You know, we took a risk. She took the risk by doing it, but we put her in that position. Had we known that she was going to get hit, of course we would have chained her up. But, you know, hindsight's 20/20 now. All I can think about is all the fun she had running out there. Yeah, her life was short, but we wanted to make sure it was fun. I don't believe that a dog should be on a 20-foot lead and just get tangled up in trees and all that. You know? I don't believe it. I believe dogs need room. Dogs need freedom. Dogs need to walk. They need exercise. And most importantly, dogs need to be a dog. So, yeah. That's why she was hit by a car. Because she went a quarter of a mile away from where she was normally supposed to be. And she met her end. So, I do want to address that. But so much more. I know I'm kind of going all over the place. I really want you guys to know that during these hard times, a lot of people are grieving. We're not alone here in this sadness. And I know a lot of you are grieving too. But it's the unity that makes us stronger, makes us better again. And a family member said it to me yesterday, and I found it very moving, was that there may be a hole in your heart, but when you move on and you get ready to love another pet, your heart will grow. It doesn't replace that spot that is Olive's. That spot now becomes stronger and fortified with more love that you have for another dog. And me and my wife certainly aren't ready for another puppy yet. That's not going to happen for maybe a couple months here. But we know what Olive would have wanted. She would have wanted us to eventually go out and find a puppy that needs a home. We are going to go through the adoption and the rescue agencies. You know, hopefully get a nice little mixed breed like she was, because honestly, she was just perfect. Perfect size, perfect attitude, perfect care, I guess, in the fur stuff. So, I mean, like, everything was awesome with this dog. She was just so perfect. And another thing that makes it so hard. But we're going to find another perfect dog. We're going to find another perfect playmate for Lincoln before he gets too old and cranky. So we're going to come back from this, and you're going to come back from what you're suffering too. I can promise you this is just the darkness, but remember, the darkest of the night always comes before the dawn. And that sun is going to rise again, with or without you, so you might as well just get up and enjoy it. Because life is a short ride. We never know when it's going to end. But let's have it end on a high note. Let's have it end being happy. Because that's how the way life should be lived. All right, guys, you have been listening to the Covfefe podcast. Thank you. Remember to like, subscribe. And this podcast I am dedicating to my beautiful dog, Olive. May she rest in peace in the kingdom of heaven. All right, guys, thanks for listening.